Verse of the day 22 in 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 15. Paul exalts the supreme authority and majesty of God. He who is the blessed and only potentate, the King of kings and Lord of lords. This verse emphasizes God's sovereignty, eternal reign, and unique power, inspiring worship and trust in his unmatched authority. Paul writes to Timothy, a young pastor, providing guidance for leading the church and staying steadfast in faith amidst challenges. In the preceding verses, Paul urges Timothy to pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, and patience, keeping his focus on eternal life. This declaration of God's supremacy comes as a doxology, a spontaneous outpouring of praise that underscores the centrality of God in Timothy's life and ministry. He who is the blessed refers to God's perfect state of joy, completeness, and eternal blessedness. And only potentate describes God as the ultimate sovereign, possessing unparalleled authority over all creation. The King of kings and Lord of lords highlights God's supreme rule over all earthly and heavenly powers, asserting his absolute dominion. This verse reminds believers that God's authority is unchallenged, eternal, and worthy of all praise and allegiance. Old Testament references. Deuteronomy chapter 10 verse 17. For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome. This description of God's majesty mirrors Paul's declaration in 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 15. Psalm chapter 47 verse 2. For the Lord Most High is awesome. He is a great king over all the earth. God's kingship extends over all nations and creation. Daniel chapter 4 verse 34-35. Nebuchadnezzar declares, his dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. This emphasizes the eternal nature of God's rule. New Testament references. Revelation chapter 17 verse 14. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. John echoes Paul's declaration of Christ's supreme authority. Revelation chapter 19 verse 16. And he has on his robe and on his thigh a name written, King of kings and Lord of lords. This reveals Jesus as the ultimate ruler who triumphs over all enemies. Philippians chapter 2 verse 9-11. God also has highly exalted him and given him the name which is above every name. Paul acknowledges Jesus' exalted position as Lord over all. Applications for today. Submit to God's authority. Recognize that God's sovereignty extends over every aspect of life. Surrender your plans and decisions to his perfect will. Worship the King of Kings. Paul's words inspire awe and reverence for God's unmatched majesty. Regularly spend time in worship, acknowledging his greatness. Find confidence in God's reign. In a world of uncertainty, trust that God's rule is unshakable. He is in control over all powers and authorities. Live with kingdom focus. Let the truth of God's sovereignty shape your priorities and actions. Pursue his kingdom and righteousness above all else. Proclaim his supremacy. Share the hope of God's unmatched authority with others, pointing them to the King who reigns eternally and offers salvation. Relevance for the modern generation. In an age where people seek control and authority for themselves, this verse reminds believers to revere and submit to the ultimate sovereignty of God. It calls the modern generation to place their trust not in earthly powers but in the eternal King who reigns over all. The promise of God's unchallenged rule offers peace and assurance in the midst of political, social, and personal turmoil. Final reflection. 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 15 is a powerful declaration of God's majesty. This verse invites us to worship God, trust His rule, and align our lives with His eternal kingdom. In a world of shifting powers, remember that our God reigns supreme, unchanging, and all-powerful. God bless you and give you grace after grace.